Welcome back, everybody, and heading into our lunchtime off the back of a very strong morning of presentations. And nice to be closing off into our lunch break, although we don't have a break. We're actually running all the way through, but with Adore Beauty and Tennille O'Shannessy, CEO. Tennille, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Not good to hear I'm the last thing standing between people's lunch, but we'll give it our best shot.
Well, I think you're actually not standing between people's lunch. You're just standing before the next speaker who'll be standing right on their people's lunch. But anyway, it's been a really good morning this morning hearing about various companies focused on consumer market and how they've been growing. And maybe just as we kick things off, I'll say up front, my wife's a customer. She recently took made an order. It came within a day or two. It had all the product beautifully packaged, including the Tim Tam, which I think was the first thing she opened after opening the box. But she enjoys the experience. So can you give us a bit of a story behind, how Adore came about, how you focus on the customer experience, what makes you different from others in the market?
Yeah, certainly. So a little bit about the Adore story. We're Australia's #1 pure play online beauty retailer, and we were founded in 2000. We entered the New Zealand market in 2019 and we listed on the ASX in October 2020. And the vision for the business and I guess its rationale for being formed was really to transform the online beauty shopping experience and to create a discovery destination for consumers. And we've done that by really focusing on every element of the customer experience, and you touched on some of those things there. So everything from an extensive range authority, so we've got a compelling offering of over 260 brands and over 11,000 products. We've got an exceptional transactional shopping experience, including fast, free express delivery, and we include lots of samples, gift with purchase, and the Tim Tam with every order. And we've combined that with a media and e-commerce offering into what is today an integrated digital platform. So within our platform, we not only offer that seamless e-commerce experience, but through our content, our media offering, and what we've done through discovery, we've really developed significant competitive moats in terms of this integrated platform we've developed. The business itself operates in a very large and growing $11 billion market, and that market is seeing significant structural tailwinds with low online penetration. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but even with the benefit of the acceleration due to the lockdowns, Australia is still many years behind the US and the UK in terms of penetration. And the business has a strong track record of growing faster than the market and taking share. So our historical 3-year CAGR to FY21 was at 50%. So it has a strong track record of growing even faster than the online segment of the market.
So thanks for that background. You're in the beauty and personal care segment. We're talking about consumer discretionary a lot today and tomorrow. Does Adore consider that segment of the market discretionary or non-discretionary? And can you talk a little bit about the key products you're selling and what your demographic looks like?
Yeah, certainly. And Ron, you could probably have a chat to your wife about this one. But to our customers, to premium beauty customers generally, beauty is very much viewed as an essential purchase. Women would forego many purchases before they were the essential items that they purchase for their skincare regime. And historically, we have seen the beauty category be very resilient through the cycle. So I think this has historically been coined the phrase, you might have heard of it, the lipstick effect, which refers to the phenomena in times of downturn or struggle. Women will look to purchase small, affordable luxuries that allow them to take part in self-care and nourishment. Although I think these days that phenomena might more aptly be referred to as the skincare effect. And so when we take a look at our product range, we skew quite heavily towards skincare and hair care as categories. And those categories have been the fastest growing categories within the beauty and personal care segment, skincare in particular. And skincare still continues to perform really strongly at a global level.
And then in terms of the competitive environment, who are Adore's closest competitors and what are the key differentiators that make Adore stand out from the others?
Certainly. So beauty's always been a competitive industry. And we would view our traditional competitors or our nearest competitors as the omni-channel department stores, as in Myer and DJs, as well as the beauty specialists who are also omni-channel in terms of Mecca and Sephora. So we view them as our core competitor set. When we take a look at what is, I guess, differentiated in the door model relative to those businesses, you know, we think about the digital and online shopping experience as being core and part of our DNA. And we've spent 21 years developing, innovating, disrupting, and creating an online shopping experience that we believe is superior to the physical in-store experience. And I think that's reflected really nicely when you take a look at our relative performance on metrics like customer satisfaction, net promoter score, Google reviews. So to give you an example, our Google reviews rating is 4.9 out of 5 over 29,000 reviews. And so we believe with that focus on digital, and digital really being our DNA and it being the only channel for us, we've created that online shopping experience that is truly exceptional.
So with digital having been your DNA and your only channel for the last 21 years, and with your key competitors being omni-channel and moving from bricks and mortars into digital, do you see yourself over time also developing an omni-channel or having a couple of flagship stores to build on the digital presence that you've got? What does Adore look like going forward?
So as I just touched on, Ron, we have spent 21 years disrupting and designing a digital experience that exceeds the physical. So I wouldn't see a significant store footprint for distribution reasons as a focus for us in the short to medium term. Having said that, I think there is an opportunity around brand awareness. And so when we take a look at brand awareness, it's been a strategic priority of ours and one we're focused on. But even with that focus, our current levels of brand awareness sit at around 50%. If we contrast that to our omni-channel competitive peers, best in class tends to look at brand awareness levels of around 80%. So the way, and I think that the physical footprint and the store network does support that. So when we think about brand awareness and the opportunities there, we're very much customer-led there and channel agnostic. And so we would look to engage with customers in the digital and the physical experiential world, whatever way makes sense to build out that brand awareness. So if that includes elements of, you know, experiential events that does engage them for the purposes of building brand, we'd definitely be open to that. In fact, we have experimented with that already. So part of our offerings through the content side of our business is we offer access to various educational masterclasses. So it might be things demonstrating, the use of a hair tool or a skincare regime or how to put on makeup to achieve a certain look. Due to COVID, we've been doing a lot of those masterclasses in the virtual world, but I think that moving on from the lockdown situation, there's opportunity to do those, filmed with an audience and getting that customer participation in those events.
So north of 50% brand awareness is still a very high metric. There's a lot of brands, I'm sure, that would love that sort of unaided customer awareness. And clearly there's still, as you said, more room for growth. But with that sort of level of brand awareness and with the loyal customer base that you've built up, do you see Adore Beauty going into private label like a number of other large retailers have done over time? You build up the awareness, you build up product knowledge, and then your customers are saying, hey, we'd love to buy some Adore Beauty products as opposed to another brand via Adore.
Yeah, great question, and one that we've been working on in the background for the last 18 months to 2 years. So we're imminently launching a private label offering as in terms of our first major offering in the skincare space. That should come later this financial year. Now, our approach to private label is one where with our customer audience, as you touched on, we've essentially got available this, the largest focus group you could hope for, over 800,000 active customers. And we've used the insights and customer data to identify gaps in our current product portfolio. And we're looking through our private label strategy to develop brands and product ranges that are independent, standalone brands capable of, moving towards top 10 in their category or subcategory. So that's our focus for private label. It's using those data and insights to identify gaps. And very much we'd be looking for our private label strategy to be accretive at both a revenue and a margin level.
And then in terms of other growth levers going forward, so you've got obviously private label, you've got the ability to increase brand awareness that then drives growing active customer base. what other levers do you look at in terms of driving the next phase of growth for the company?
Sure. So we've laid out a very clear strategy and we're executing strongly against that. The strategy is focused on, as you touch on, growing market share and really cementing that online market leadership. And we're doing that with three strategic priorities. The first is around range authority. So continuing to build out a compelling product range and to deepen our brand partnerships. That includes launching and scaling our private label as well as moving into related adjacencies. So for categories that make sense close to where we offer today. And we've already been moving into adjacencies with things like fragrance, wellness, the sex category and men's. The second pillar or the second strategic priority is to continue to develop the best online transaction experience. And what we're focused on here is continuing to improve the user experience and our site conversion, and really importantly, expanding the use of data-driven personalization to create a very unique, differentiated personal experience for every user that experiences our website as well as our mobile app. And then the third pillar that we're focused on is continuing to drive content-led customer engagement. And underneath this pillar, we will continue to scale out and embed our mobile app as an owned marketing channel, continue to expand our loyalty program, as well as growing both our brand awareness and our owned marketing channels. So they're the three pillars that we're focused on to really drive that growth in share within the core market.
Can you tell us a little bit about your loyalty program? How does it work? What benefits do people get? And why has it been successful?
Yeah, certainly. So we've just celebrated this week marked the 12 months of the first launch date. So the loyalty program just turned 1. And what we've done with the loyalty program is Adore as a business has been focused on loyalty for many years. There's incredible value adds across every element of our customer experience. The opportunity for us around loyalty was to create a structure and a recognition of our most loyal customers so that they felt that emotional connection and that engagement with the brand and the associated status that comes with being a top tier customer. So with phase 1 of the loyalty program, which is where we are now, we sought to put in place a holistic program that is structured along 3 tiers that really recognised our most loyal customers and rewarded them with a mix of financial, experiential benefits, including access to money can't buy type experiences. And the loyalty program is also personalised. So it's also tailored to what we know about that customer and how she engages with us, the content that she enjoys, the product that she likes to see. So that loyalty program has been scaling incredibly well. We're blown away by how well that's been scaling. We've got over 95% of our most loyal customers, the top tier customers, signed up already. Our focus for the loyalty program moving forward is to think about how we engage with that customer base to really drive repeat purchase and lifetime value. So we've been running a series of loyalty events to engage those customers. So they will be invitation-only masterclasses where customers can come in for the purposes of education, entertainment, engage with us on various different topics in the beauty and personal care space. So they've been highly successful. They're ticketed events. They tend to sell out. And that really just drives that engagement piece and repeat purchase piece for those most loyal customers.
And have you found that those loyalty customers have been coming back more frequently than people who are not loyalty customers, and as a result are spending more in a 12-month period than what previously you would have seen from repeat customers but not loyalty customers? That makes sense?
It does make sense. We continue to track that very closely. Obviously, those customers that are part of our loyalty program are driving elevated levels of repeat purchase and average order value and the like. I think that the dual focuses for us in phase 2 are firstly continuing to scale up the program, and then secondly, continuing to find ways to experiment with how we can encourage and influence that customer behaviour around repeat purchase. So it is those engagement experiential events like the masterclasses I just spoke to. We will also look at other ways that we can engage that cohort of customers. So looking at things like subscription models to encourage repeat purchase, elements like that as we build out the loyalty program in the second phase.
So I've got to ask, Neil, because you talked about Adore Men's as one of the adjacencies that you're growing in and expanding. do you find that and I asked this because when my wife put the order in, she goes, "Hey, I'm putting an order in, and do you want any fragrances or whatever?" And I said, "Look, at the moment I'm fine. Who are you putting an order in?" And she said, "Adore." And I went, "Oh, okay." But do you find that on the Adore men's, it's the men that are putting in? Is it mainly men that are buying, or is it their partners, their female partners, that are buying on behalf of them? Do you get a bit of a sense of that?
We do. It's actually a good mix of both. So I think we saw some really interesting trends coming through the lockdown situation, where the interest in particular from our male customer base around topics like skincare, like hair care, really elevated. I wonder if it's not because all of us were looking at ourselves on Zoom for too long and thought about, maybe there's some more things we can be doing around self-care. But we've really seen some significant shifts in terms of men's engagement with the skincare and hair care category. And we see a good mix of male customers shopping on the site, as well as females shopping on behalf of men. Our approach to beauty is one that is, I guess, we aim to be very inclusive and to create a site where you're able to experience the category in whatever way makes you feel confident and fabulous. So our preferred approach is to be inclusive. So rather than taking a deeply gendered approach where we, index strongly towards either a female set of brands or a male-oriented set of brands, what we tend to do is present all of the brands with all of the information. And we find that, quite often in categories like skincare and hair care, they tend to be much more gender neutral. And so we get customers shopping across both our male and female customers.
So you talked about lockdowns, and I'm pretty sure there was over the last 2 years a bit of a Zoom effect on people, where you keep seeing yourself, for the first time ever, you kept seeing yourself on a screen, and you become very conscious of how you look, how you present, how you come across to whether it's 2 people, 20 or 200 people. And that's, I assume, would have driven a bit of an uptick. How did you see the last 2 years in terms of COVID? There's been a lot of talk by online retailers around, a slight pull forward of demand that would have come through, but just an accelerate, like bringing it forward and accelerating it. There are other people that aren't too sure about, is it a hump? And it won't go all the way down, but is it a bit of a hump now? We're kind of rebasing to then go back into growth. How did you see things through COVID in terms of the business growth? And then how do you see things now as we go forward with lockdowns being lifted?
Yeah, certainly. So the way we look at it is we would very much view COVID as accelerating what was an existing structural trend and shift towards online. And so, the online penetration within the beauty category had been growing extremely strongly pre-COVID, so, growing at circa 25% a year. I think during the COVID period, that elevated significantly. So as an example, in calendar year 20, the online channel within beauty grew at 60%. So obviously well above the odds in terms of the historical growth rate. The really good thing about that is because beauty is a high repeat purchase category, what we saw when customers were shopping online during those lockdowns is the online shopping behaviours were very habit forming. And so what that has meant is those customers that we acquired during the lockdown period, we had the opportunity to have them shop with us on platform multiple times. And they really enjoyed the experience. They got the exceptional shopping experience that's reflected in our customer satisfaction. And we've been able to retain that significant volume of new customers we acquired during COVID, retain them as existing customers on our platform. Post-lockdown, we would expect the growth rates at a beauty market level, to return to those more sustainable growth rates rather than the peaks we saw during COVID. But given the structural tailwinds that we see continuing to be in place for the market, given Australian online penetration remains so far behind more developed markets, we expect the online market to continue to grow in the mid to long term as Australia continues to catch up.
So one of the other things that we saw through the last couple of years of COVID was interrupted supply chains, obviously difficult delivery chains. How did you navigate through that? And then obviously, have you addressed certain things going forward now?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that we were fortunate in terms of the work that we had done in the business to be ready for, I guess, the peak that came during lockdown. So from a technology and infrastructure perspective, as well as in terms of a warehouse capacity perspective, we were well placed to manage the spikes in volumes and the uncertainty that we saw during the supply chain. What that allowed us to do, because of the investments that we've made, is we were able to be very proactive in terms of our planning and our long-range forecasting with our brand partners around requirements given the uncertainty. And I think because we predominantly source our supply from either Australian brands or Australian-based distributors of international brands, the impact that we saw to our supply chain was more limited than what I understand was the case for those retailers that were either sourcing, in electrical space or directly from international markets. So the impact on our supply chain was relatively limited during the time in terms of both out of stocks and the levels of days cover that we had to manage throughout the period.
There's been a lot of talk lately about CAC, customer acquisition costs, marketing spend, particularly for online pure plays, and what's a sustainable ROI on that marketing spend. How are you thinking about marketing and brand investment and customer acquisition costs for Adore?
Yeah, certainly. So what I would say is that we've been in the paid performance channels for 21 years, and I think that those channels each year have been getting more competitive and more expensive. That's just a typical operating environment for a digital pure play. And I would back our business being digital native, to be best in class in terms of operating and optimizing digital performance channels within that space. Having said that, I think that there's a couple of dynamics at play. There is both the increased competition and cost of those channels, but there's also the impact of changes to privacy legislation. And I think that those come together and really underscore the importance for e-commerce brands who have aspirations to scale and grow faster than the market to invest in building out their owned marketing channels. And there is two important reasons to build out those owned channels. First is to build out a robust first-party data source to aid with your ability to be able to segment, target customers in a much more nuanced way, but also reducing reliance on those more expensive paid channels. So Adore as a business has been investing and growing our own marketing channels across a number of years through strategic initiatives like our mobile app, like building out our brand awareness and building out our loyalty program. And also, we've been building our own marketing channels through expanding our content to power our performance in SEO and email. And so to give you a view on the results of those investments, in the last half, we grew our content-driven impressions by 17%, and Adore Beauty's organic traffic share is around 2 times the peer competitor set average. And so that continued investment to build out those owned marketing channels is a really effective way to build out first-party data. But what it does is it also effectively, the investments we're making now offset the future requirements to have to invest in those more expensive paid performance channels over time.
We've talked a lot about marketing and brand investment and how you underpin the growth, and you've delivered very strong growth historically, and you're still nowhere near market saturation. The market opportunity is still massive, as you pointed out. How are you thinking about growth versus profit, given the huge opportunity that lies in front of you in terms of growth?
Yeah, certainly. So I think we've stated very clearly that our strategy is a top-line revenue growth strategy for all the reasons that you've just summarised really nicely. We remain incredibly excited by a very large market opportunity with structural tailwinds. We're very early on in the online adoption curve, and as market leader, we believe we're really well placed to take a disproportionate share of this accelerated structural shift to online we're seeing. So that is very much our stated approach, and that's reflected in the investments we're making to drive top-line revenue growth, but also to invest in those strategic initiatives that we believe build out the competitive moats in the business and ensure that our growth is sustainable. So things like our data and analytics, our content, our private label, etc. Having said that, this is a business that has been grown carefully, sustainably and profitably for 21 years. And we will continue to grow the business with that same focus on balancing profitability and growing very much in a sustainable way. So I think that that's reflected in the guidance we've shared with the market, that in the short to medium term, we expect an EBITDA margin to be delivered, and we're targeting an EBITDA margin of 2 to 4%. That is reflective of the investments we're making to underpin not only growth in the current year, but growth in future years.
So maybe a great spot to finish off with the final question, which is, what does the business look like in 5 years? How do you think about success? What excites you in terms of driving towards that aspiration?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that we very much have the aspiration to transform the beauty shopping experience, and as well as being the destination for discovery and a global leader. So in the short term, we've spent a lot of time on this call talking about where we're focused on growing and expanding our market share in our core categories within Australia and New Zealand. But I think, to be very clear, while we're executing our strategic priorities with a domestic focus, we're also laying the foundations for expanding into new addressable markets. And what I mean here is by continuing to expand into adjacent categories. So we've started and are doing really well with fragrance, wellness, sex and men's, as well as expanding into international geographies. So we've started this with the New Zealand expansion, and also looking into other opportunities there. And finally, launching and scaling our private label offering with an aspiration that private label offering is developed in such a way that it is a range of independent standalone brands that at scale are capable of being marketed direct to consumers internationally also. So I think that long term, we're really just getting started as a business. We've got a very clear playbook to cement the market leadership position here in Australia, but also laying the foundations for pushing that growth into new addressable markets as well as new business models.
Tennealle, thank you so much for your time today. It was terrific to hear about Adore, the growth strategies you've been putting into play, and the opportunities you see for the business going forward. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this conversation. And we'll just step back and let the next session be set up. Thank you very much, Tennealle.
Thanks, Ron.